Attention passionate LAS, Vegas Raiders fans. Latest news, something big is happening in the AFC West and it could change the game. We're talking about a direct impact on Las Vegas Raiders' path to another Super Bowl run, a power shift that could leave a division rival stumbling for years. We're bringing this to you firsthand. But before that, if you're a true Las Vegas Raiders fan, subscribe to the channel to strengthen this passion even more. Show that you're also part of this family. Let's help each other reach 1,000 subscribers. Share with your FRINDS and LAS, Vegas Raiders FANS. Let's get to the news. When we look at the Raiders' current situation heading into the 2024 season, it's impossible not to feel a mix of anticipation and concern. The team has been busy in the offseason, making some notable moves, but also facing challenges that could define their trajectory in the AFC West and beyond. And if we're talking about the biggest stories right now, one of the headlines that's catching everyone's attention involves their defensive line, a unit that's been pivotal for the team's success over the years, but now faces some uncertainty. The signing of Christian Wilkins last offseason was an eye-catching move, a true statement of intent from the Raiders' front office. They splurged on him, giving him a 4-year deal worth $110 million, a hefty investment that signaled their desire to boost their interior defensive presence. At the time, it seemed like a perfect fit, a young star, a proven disruptor, someone who could anchor their run defense and create pressure up the middle. But as we all know, football is a game of injuries, and Wilkins' story took a sudden turn that changed everything. You might remember, Wilkins only managed to play 5 games last season before suffering a broken foot. And unfortunately, the reports are not very optimistic about his recovery timeline. There's talk that he could miss a substantial part of the 2025 campaign, which throws a wrench into the Raiders' plans. Imagine investing so heavily in a player, only to see him sidelined for a significant chunk of time. That kind of setback can really alter a team's strategy, especially when it comes to the defensive line, which is so crucial in today's NFL. The Raiders' front office, led by General Manager John Spidek, has been proactive, making big moves in free agency and trying to fill gaps on the roster. But now, with Wilkins' injury status uncertain, they might have to explore some additional reinforcements. This is where the rumors and potential trades start to heat up, and one of the most interesting ones involves a familiar face, Shelby Harris. Now, for those of you who follow the Raiders closely, you'll remember Shelby Harris. He's a name that's been associated with the team since his rookie days, when he was drafted in 2014. Harris initially entered the league as a 7th-round pick, and he had a brief stint with the Raiders, playing just 8 games over 2 seasons before being released. But Harris is one of those players who, despite a modest start, managed to carve out a solid career in the NFL. He's been a key rotational player and even a starter for the Denver Broncos, where he truly found his stride. Over 5 seasons with Denver, Harris racked up an impressive 21. 5 sacks and 34 tackles for loss. That's production that catches the eye, especially for a player who was initially overlooked in the draft. And then, in 2022, Harris was part of the blockbuster Russell Wilson trade, moving from Denver to Seattle in a deal that shook up the NFL landscape. He only spent 1 season with the Seahawks before signing with the Cleveland Browns in free agency. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Harris is entering his age 34 season, and with the Browns having recently drafted Mason Graham, a highly touted defensive tackle taken 5th overall in the 2025 NFL Draft, it's possible that Harris's role with Cleveland could be diminishing. The Browns are clearly embracing a youth movement on defense, and that means Harris might be on his way out, either through release or trade. From a financial standpoint, Cleveland could benefit by moving Harris, saving around $22 million in cap space if they trade him, which is a pretty compelling reason to explore options. That's where the Raiders come into the picture. They have a clear need on the interior defensive line, especially with Wilkins' uncertain future. Bringing Shelby Harris back to Las Vegas could be a smart, cost-effective move. And the best part, it might not even cost them much. Reports suggest that a trade involving a 7th-round pick in 2026 could be enough to land Harris. The Raiders could see this as a low-risk, high-reward scenario, a veteran presence with familiar roots, someone who already understands their defensive schemes and culture. Plus, with Harris's experience and production, he could step in and provide immediate depth and even compete for a starting role if needed. But before we get ahead of ourselves, there are some hurdles. Cleveland's front office will have to decide whether Harris fits into their future plans, especially with the youth movement they're pursuing. If they believe Harris no longer fits their timeline, they might be inclined to trade him rather than release him outright, which makes the Raiders' move more plausible. The Browns might also weigh the possibility of just waiting for Harris to be released, but that's a gamble. Other teams could be eyeing him as well, waiting for the Browns to make the first move. So, timing becomes crucial. If the Raiders want Harris, they might need to act quickly, especially with training camp just around the corner. Now, let's talk a bit more about the implications of this potential reunion. Bringing Shelby Harris back to the Raiders isn't just about filling a roster spot. It's about adding a player with familiarity with the organization, a guy who's been through the grind and knows what it takes to succeed in the AFC West. We all remember his gritty performances during his earlier stint, his ability to disrupt plays, and his relentless effort on every snap. That kind of veteran leadership can be invaluable, especially for a defense that's still finding its footing after some recent upheavals. And if you think about the bigger picture, the Raiders are entering a critical phase. They need to solidify their defense, especially along the line, to keep pace with the top teams in the division like the Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Chargers. Both of those teams have invested heavily in their rosters, with star quarterbacks and explosive offenses. The Raiders need to respond with a stout defensive front that can pressure the quarterback, stop the run, and create turnovers. And speaking of the division, the AFC West is shaping up to be more competitive than ever. The Chiefs, with Patrick Mahomes leading their high-powered offense, are still favorites, but the Chargers are not far behind, especially with their talented roster. The Denver Broncos are also looking to bounce back after a tough 2023 season, and the Raiders know that every game counts. They need every advantage they can get, and boosting their defensive line with a seasoned veteran like Harris could be a game-changer. It's not just about one player, though. It's about signaling to the rest of the league that the Raiders are serious about contending, about making a statement that they're still a force to be reckoned with in the AFC. Of course, fans are eager to see how this all unfolds. The offseason is always full of surprises, and this potential trade could be just the beginning. The Raiders have been aggressive in free agency, making smart signings and re-signings, but the trade market is where they could really make a splash. Shelby Harris's familiarity, production, and leadership make him an intriguing target, especially if the Browns decide to move him. It's a low-cost gamble that could pay huge dividends, giving the Raiders a much-needed boost along the defensive front. And let's not forget, Harris's experience in the AFC West means he's familiar with the division's style of play, the rivalries, and the pressure that comes with these high-stakes games. His presence could help the younger players develop, while also providing a steady veteran voice in the locker room. Now, looking ahead, the Raiders face some important questions. Will the Browns pull the trigger on a trade? How quickly can Harris integrate into the team? And most importantly, can he help stabilize a defensive line that has been somewhat inconsistent in recent years? These are the questions fans will be watching closely as training camp approaches. The team's success this season will depend heavily on their front line's ability to hold up against some of the best defenses in the league. An infusion of experience and talent could turn the tide and help the Raiders compete at a higher level. In terms of the bigger picture, this potential move fits into the Raiders' broader strategy of building a team that can compete now and in the future. They've made some solid draft choices, brought in key free agents, and shown a willingness to be aggressive in the trade market. Reuniting with Shelby Harris would be a smart, cost-effective way to bolster their defensive line without breaking the bank. It's a move that makes sense from a roster-building perspective, and it could also send a message to the rest of the league that Las Vegas is serious about contending. So, fans, as we inch closer to training camp and the start of the season, keep an eye on this story. The Raiders are always looking for ways to improve, and a potential reunion with Harris could be one of those moves that makes all the difference. The AFC West is shaping up to be a battle of attrition, and every advantage counts. Whether Harris ends up donning the silver and black again or not, it's clear that the Raiders are leaving no stone unturned in their quest for greatness. They're a team that's constantly evolving, always searching for that edge, and this offseason has shown that they're willing to be bold. So, buckle up, Raiders fans, because the 2024 season promises to be one of the most exciting in recent memory. The road to another Super Bowl run is filled with challenges, but with smart moves like potentially bringing Shelby Harris back into the fold, the Raiders are positioning themselves as a team that's ready to fight for the top spot in the AFC. And now, Las Vegas Raiders fans, I want to hear from you. What's your take on this? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your opinion matters so much to us and to the Raiders. Do you think Harris can make a real difference? Are you excited about the team's prospects this season? Let us know. And don't forget, I'll be back soon with more updates, so stay tuned for the latest Las Vegas Raiders news. We're in this together, and every bit of insight, every rumor, and every game plan counts when it comes to our beloved team. Thanks for watching, and as always, go Raiders.